County, and I'm on staff here in Wildlife. And if it's your first time joining us here this morning, I am so glad that you are here. I'm glad whether your parents drove you here, you asked a friend to get you here, whatever reason you're here, I'm so glad because we're going to be starting a new series this morning, which I'm really excited about. But before we do that, I want to remind you of a couple of things. One, there's a message note sheet that should have been on your chairs. You guys came in. That's a great tool to kind of help you follow along, to kind of win in this time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a copy of it right here. It's right here. It's just a great way to kind of fill in some blanks. There's going to be some fill in the blanks on the back. There's going to be some words on the screen that you can kind of fill in. And that's just a great way to follow along as we go into this time. I want to remind you guys also that as we go into this time of teaching in Wildlife, we like to say that this is the most important time of the service. And it's not because anything that I personally say, it's because what Jesus is going to speak to us, show us more of who he is as we begin this series, which I'm really excited about. But real quick, I just want to kind of, you can just shout it out. What was some of those songs that you kind of want to get stuck in your head for the rest of your life? Yeah, Titus, what? Baby Shark, that's good. I think for me, I would choose Be a Man from Mulan. Kind of just a reminder, to be a man. So if you don't know what that song is, go home after Wildlife, listen to it, look it up on Spotify. If you've never seen the movie, watch it. If you've seen the live action remake, I'm so sorry. It's bad. I started it 20 minutes in and I was like, you know what? Where's Mushu? Let's leave this. Mushu's not in it. I'm not going to watch it. So as we go into this time, I hope you guys are excited. I know Sunday mornings are a little drowsy. You're a little tired. You want to go home, play Fortnite. One of the guys this morning playing basketball, he told me that his friend isn't here because he's at home playing Fortnite, and he saw it on Discord. And I was like, good to know. But anyway, let's jump in and let's get started. So Jesus, thank you so much that we have an opportunity this morning to learn more about you. I ask that you would show us more of who you are. I pray for wherever we are at this morning, whether we're in a really just terrible time that we're in, a really terrible season, whether it's something going on at home, something going on personally. I don't know what it is, Jesus, but I just pray that you would give us your peace, your comfort, and that we can rest easy every single day knowing that you are with us, that you are for us, that you are always here for us to hear what we have to say. So would you show us more of who you are? And it's in your name, amen. So Wildlife, I have a question for you. It's just a question. You can just raise your hand. You don't have to really answer it. But have you ever created something that you were so proud of that you had to tell everyone about it? Anyone ever create something, whether it's like on Minecraft, a painting, a sculpture, or a birdhouse? I don't know. Whatever it is, have you guys ever created something and that you were so proud of that you wanted to show everyone how awesome this one thing was? For example, years ago when I was playing Minecraft like every single day, it was a bad habit. But every single time I would go and start like a new Minecraft world, I would always, I don't know why, I would always create a tree house. Now, not just any tree house, like a tree house that would be so big and epic that if you, everyone played Minecraft? If you play, whoever's played Minecraft, just raise your hand. Okay, so most of us have played Minecraft. If you haven't, you're missing out. It's awesome. But I would go around and like plant all these like tree sapling things, and then like a couple minutes would go by, and then just this gigantic tree would like sprout up and be like, boom, there's my house. It's awesome. But again, have you ever created something that you were so proud of? You wanted to show everyone how awesome this one thing was. Now, if you don't know this, there's been like a lot of what we call inventors that have created something over time, like a lot of crazy stuff. And I thought this morning would be fun by starting off with a quick game. You guys want to play a game real quick? It's an easy one. You can stay there. You don't have to move. All you have to do is just shout out what you think their name is, and then maybe what you think they created, what they invented. Super easy. Let's see if you can do it. Let's get this first one on the screen. We'll start easy. All right, who is this? All right. What is like one thing that you could shout out that Walt Disney created? Disneyland. All right, let's go to the next one. Next slide on there. So Walt Disney created Disneyland, and the suspense is so, there it is. Everyone's been to Disneyland, right? No? I know some people haven't. I went to Disneyland earlier actually last year in December, and the whole day it was pouring down rain, and it was something I'd never want to live again. Let's go to the next one. Let's see if you guys know this next one. Who's this? What did Steve Jobs create? You say Bill Gates? Oh, sorry. I thought, what did Steve Jobs create? Bill Gates. No. Unless you think Bill Gates is a robot, which maybe. I don't know. So what did he create? Apple or iPhone, right? So he created, look at that small little thing. That's crazy. Let's go to the next one. This one might be a little more tricky. Who is this? The president? No. Sherlock Holmes? I'll give you a hint. Oh, yes. Tyler, say it loud and proud. Thomas Edison. What did Thomas Edison create? The light bulb. Let's go to the next one. Look at that thing. That's crazy. All right, and then we have this last one on the screen. Let's see it. Who is this? He's like one of the richest mans in the world. And then what did he create? I heard Tesla. Tesla is correct. I know a lot of us are like, well, he created the SpaceX program. He's created all these stuff. Man, I want that car. How sweet would that be? But what we've seen with all these different creators, hold on, listen up. All these different inventors is that we know all of these people from what they've created. Again, Walt Disney has created Mickey Mouse. We've seen, Thomas Edison. He also created, I guess, the first movie camera. He created the telephone. Apparently about the light bulb, he didn't really create it. He stole it from someone. It's like a big thing. There's a movie about it. But anyway, he still gets the credit according to Wikipedia. And we can trust Wikipedia. No, we can't. Good job. Good job. But what we've seen with all these inventors on the screen is that all of us truly believe that we think that they created it, that they invented all these things. But what I want to help you guys understand and kind of focus on this morning is that they may have created it or invented it, but truly they didn't. And I'll tell you why. Is that truly, let's go, for example, with a Tesla, a car, for example. Is that Elon Musk, he may have thought up the idea, may have kind of put some of the scraps together and kind of formed this vehicle. But truly, he didn't create what you need to make a tire. He didn't create the metal. He didn't get the material to create the car itself. Is that truly everything that we think we create, like a computer, for example, everything we think we create, we truly can't create anything, because anything we need to create something or to invent something, God is the one that created it. God created the materials to get the metal. He created the trees to chop down and get the wood, but God truly created everything. So as we're starting this brand new series this morning, we're starting this series titled Created. We have the screen, there it is. So in this series, Created, we're going to be looking at a couple of things. So on your note sheet, actually, go ahead and pull those out. On the very front page, there's actually a description of what we're going to be learning in this series and the reason why. So I'm going to encourage you, pull those out, and I just want you to read along with me. Where did my note sheet go? That's weird. It's somewhere here. No, it's not. Disappeared. No, it's fine. It'll be on the screen. That's so weird. Getting old. Did I have one earlier? See, that's when I start questioning. It's like, anyway, so on the screen, let's read it. I'll read it out loud, but I want you guys to just follow along what the series is about. So in this series, we're going to be looking at the first 3 chapters of Genesis, the first 3 chapters, to see who created everything, how he created everything, why he created everything, and then what that means for you and me, what that means for us. Because as we've are beginning this new year, I know a lot of you are maybe starting what we call a Bible plan, a Bible in a year plan. Anyone starting that just by show of hands? Yeah, I tried that once, and I got to Psalms, and I just didn't finish it. I know. But what we're going to be seeing in Genesis is a lot of stuff. But this morning, we're just going to be looking at 2 verses, the first 2 verses in Genesis. And I want to give you guys a quick little recap of what Genesis is about. And I actually asked Jonathan Ponce, where's Jonathan at? Right back there. I asked him on Tuesday, I was like, hey, if you can summarize like the whole book of Genesis in just 1 to 2 sentences, how would you summarize it? So also on your note sheet, it's the next little section on there, but it's also on the screen. I'm going to read it for you. It says this, is that the book of Genesis is a narrative, so a story that explains God's intent and sovereignty. Another word for sovereignty is like his rule over creation and how we as people continuously rebel against him. Through key people, we see God's character as he uses them in his redemptive plan. But in this series specifically, we're just going to be focusing on the first 3 chapters of Genesis. And like I said this morning, we're just going to be focusing on the first 2 verses, which might be like, oh, that's not a lot. But there's a lot we need to understand to kind of understand the whole 3 chapters and really the overall Bible as a whole. So each week as we read the Bible, we need to understand the original audience of who this was written to. Because I've said this in Wildlife before, is that the Bible wasn't written to wildlife. It wasn't written to Rocky Peak. It wasn't written to people in Simi Valley. The Bible is written to a specific audience at a specific time for a specific reason. However, the Bible is useful for us, that we can use it to understand more who God is, what's his plan for us, and how we can be a part of his epic plan. Because if you're like me, you like to be part of something epic. So what we need to understand is that this book, we need to understand who wrote it. And also the word Genesis, what you need to understand too, is that the word Genesis isn't just a cool word, but it actually means something. It actually means beginning, which makes sense. It's the first book in the Bible. But the author of Genesis is someone you may know if you grew up going to RPK or going to church, is someone we know as Moses. You guys know who Moses is, right? He's part of the Red Sea. He threw down his staff. It became a serpent. Super cool stuff. But Moses wrote this book, and actually Moses wrote the first 5 books of our Bible. And the reason he wrote the first 5 books, and specifically Genesis, is that he wrote this book to tell the people of Israel who this God is that saved them out of Egypt. If you've ever seen maybe that movie from DreamWorks, like in the 90s, I know you guys weren't alive, but you've ever seen that epic movie of the Prince of Egypt, that's kind of depicting, I know it's an epic movie, but that's kind of depicting the whole story of Exodus, is that Moses is calling God's people, the Israelites, out of the 400 years of slavery in Egypt, and he's calling them to be set free. And now all these people need to then understand who this God is that freed them from this 400 years of slavery and bondage. So Moses writes these books, these 5 books, but we're just going to go through Genesis 1 through 3, and he's writing this to them to help show them, hey, this is the God that saved you out of slavery. This is the God who freed you. So what we need to do every single week as we enter into this series is that we need to put on, so to speak, our imagination hats on. Can you guys do that for a second? Just like pretend for a moment you've never read the Bible. All of you are like, got it. Get the buckle around. I don't know. But we need to understand and really kind of pretend for a moment that we've never read this part of the Bible. Maybe you've never actually read it, so you're in a great space. But maybe some of you grew up going to church, you've read Genesis, you all know, like, in the beginning, God created. Like, we all probably know that. But what I want us to do is pretend for a moment we've never heard this before. We've never heard of this God of the Bible. And we need to kind of get a fresh start, so to speak, with this. So also the point of all this is that we can't understand the creation with the how, the why, and the what if we don't know who created it. So this morning we're just going to figure out who created everything. And I want you guys to pretend for a moment that you don't know, okay? But really, I want to help you also understand is that we're just going to scratch the surface. There is so much in here that we could dive into, but we don't have that time. So we're just going to kind of just scratch the surface. And what I'm going to do then is give you guys 3 things to remember at the end, and then 1 thing that you can kind of walk away with of what this means for us. So if you guys have your Bibles, if you have your apps, we're going to be in Genesis chapter 1, which is the first page in the Bible, starting at verse 1. And as you turn there, it should take no time at all, hopefully. Again, like the first page. But what I want you guys to do real quickly, I want you guys to just close your eyes for a second, and I'm just going to read these two verses. Don't fall asleep. I saw some of you were like, oh, finally, let's do it. I want you guys just to pretend for a moment and try to picture what is being described here, what Moses is describing and telling the nation of Israel of who God is and what's kind of going on. This is going to kind of describe what's going on. So I want you to kind of picture it. So I want you guys for a second, close your eyes right now. Close your eyes. And I want you guys pretend you just see this like black canvas, like this black void. Like just try to picture nothing. So go ahead and close your eyes and just kind of picture nothing. And I would just want you guys to hear what Moses is writing. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So go ahead and open your eyes right now. So now I'm sure a lot of us are kind of picturing certain things. Like maybe we're picturing this entire black canvas, and we're kind of picturing that there's just nothing there. And then all of a sudden, like in the beginning, then God created the heavens and the earth. And we might think like there's like a sphere, like a globe, so to speak. I'm sure a lot of us are picturing something very different, and it's very mystical, very creative. And what I thought would be fun this morning is that I'm going to invite up one of you. It's already chosen, guys. Sorry. I'm going to invite up Brinley. Brinley, can you come on up here for a moment? Guys, give it up for Brinley. Brinley is going to be helping us in a certain way that I thought would be really fun. If you guys don't know Brinley, this is Brinley. Everyone, one clap. Oh, one clap on three. 1, 2, 3. How'd that feel? Felt good? Felt right. All right, you'll sleep better tonight. So what I asked Brinley to do, if you don't know, Brinley is like an incredible artist. Her life group leader, Allison Swales, as I call it, or Swales, she told me that Brinley is like a really incredible artist, and she actually sent me like a drawing of Brinley that she's done in the past, and I was like, did she trace that? No, she drew it. And what I thought would be cool is that during the rest of this time, Brinley is going to be at her chair, and she's going to be drawing what she believes, what she kind of sees as this is being read, as we just listen to it. She's going to be then drawing kind of, so to speak, her interpretation of what Moses is describing. And the thing is that there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer either. It's kind of up for like an interpretation, so to speak. But that's what Brinley is going to be doing. And then at the end, we're going to kind of see what she created, which I guarantee you, if you don't do a stick figure, you'll do a lot better than me. All right. So Brinley, go ahead and take a seat. Guys, give it up for Brinley. She's going to be kind of drawing that. I'm really excited about that. If we had a refrigerator, we'd put it on. We do have in the office. Anyway, could you imagine? So let's go ahead and kind of dive into this as we kind of unpack what Moses is describing to us as we see verses 1 and 2. So if you have your Bibles, I'm going to encourage you to open up to page 1 of the Bible. And we're going to be kind of just unpacking it. It's just 2 verses, but there's a lot in there that we need to understand. And then at the very end, we're going to see 3 points to remember about this. And then we're going to see one kind of, so to speak, a way that we can apply it and kind of remember it as we leave today and go get like tacos or something. Right? Tacos on a Sunday is great because Chick-fil-A's closed. All right. So let's read it again. If you have your Bibles, turn there. If you don't have your Bible, by the way, I would highly encourage you bring your Bible because it's a great way so you can kind of just see what we're reading about. If you have an app on your phone, that's okay, that's good too. But I would encourage you, if you don't have like an actual physical Bible where you can like have a pencil or a pen or a highlighter or a feather, and kind of underline and circle certain words, because the Bible is really incredible in how it's written. So let's go ahead and let's read it again. And I'm going to stop a little bit and explain what's going on. And also I'm going to ask you guys, if you have a pen or a pencil or a feather or whatever, I'm going to ask you also kind of just underline, highlight, circle some certain words that I'm going to kind of bring to your attention, because we're going to unpack these a little bit. And this is kind of not the normal thing we do in wildlife. Normally in wildlife, we have like a longer story. We kind of unpack one certain thing. But in this, we're going to really understand like, what is Moses trying to show us as wildlife, who this God is that created everything. So let's read it again. Verse 1, in the beginning, God. Stop right there. All right? In the beginning, God. Now, again, I want you to pretend you've never heard this before, you've never read this before, and you're hearing this for the very first time. Is that in the beginning, God? Just the first couple words. And what we need to understand is that Moses is introducing to the people of Israel and to us, he's introducing to us this God character, that this thing we don't really understand quite yet is this God is the one that is going to create everything. And so to speak, he is the main character, not just of Genesis, but of the entire Bible. He is the main character. And what we need to understand here is that when it says beginning, that God was there before time existed. Like what was there before time? God. God was in the beginning. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm going to pause quickly right there. Created the heavens and the earth. The whole reason we're calling this series Created is because we're understanding who created everything and then understanding the how, the why, and then what all that means for us. But we can't understand all of those until we understand who. So we see immediately, wow, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, you might hear this and think, okay, God created the heavens, so some clouds in the sky, and then he created the earth. You might be picturing this globe or this sphere. And what I need you to understand about this is that the people of Israel didn't know that the earth was a globe or was round at all. So what we need to understand is that originally the words heavens and earth meant different things. The word heavens actually in the original language this was written, it was actually the word sky. So another way of saying it, like the things above. And then the word earth was actually the ground. Again, not a globe, not a sphere, but just the ground. So things on earth and then things in heaven, the sky. And this is important to understand because Moses is claiming that God is the one that created everything we see. He created the molecules, he created the atoms, he created the clouds in the sky, he created how those things work, he created how trees grow from the ground. Everything we see, and even the things we kind of don't see, like the air, right? We don't see the air. Everything God created. And this is really important to understand because Moses is showing us that God created. It's actually funny, the original word of the original language, this might be fun for some of you, that the word created actually comes from is this word. It's bara. Someone say bara. Give it some emphasis, bara. Need some phlegm in there sometimes. But what we need to understand is that that word created, every single time you see the word created in the Bible, or if you were going to read the original language, which is very hard, I can't do that, is the word bara. And every single time that's mentioned in the Bible, God is the one that bara. He's the one that creates. No one else on earth, any human, can create anything. God is the one that creates. Again, we shared earlier with like Elon Musk creating Tesla or Walt Disney creating Disneyland or Mickey Mouse, is that everything that was needed to create that, even an idea, God created that. God is the one that gives us imagination, creativity. And what's really cool is that Brinley is now creating this epic drawing of what she thinks this looks like. And God is the one that's given her that ability. So let's keep going. Verse 2. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Now, this is really interesting, is that, again, the earth is the ground. So Moses is describing that it was formless and empty. Now, we might think of something kind of like Jell-O, like it's like formless, it kind of just goes everywhere, or like an empty glass or something. That, again, what these actual words mean is that the word formless, it actually means wilderness or nothing or desert. Kind of, there's like just chaos there. And then the word empty is another way of saying it's kind of just a wasteland. And what Moses is getting at here is that before everything was created, God was there. Time wasn't a thing. Nothing was there except chaos and just a wasteland of thing. Another way of saying is that there was no way for any human life, any creatures, anything was able to live there because it was just chaotic and just darkness was everywhere. But I want you guys to notice one thing, that it said it was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. So it was pitch black. And yet it says, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So yet we see in the chaos and the destruction of this world, there was nothing that was good about it. But yet God, his Spirit, God's presence was there the entire time. God was there above it all, above the chaos. So those are just the two verses we're going to read this morning. And now what I want to do with the time we have left, I want to just unpack three things I want you guys to remember based off of this passage. And then I'm going to give you just one key action step or thing to take home with of what this means for us. So on your note sheet, the first fill-in is this on the back of it, is that God is the point of the Bible. Is that God is the point of the Bible. Is that Moses shows us by revealing God to us that he created everything. And if the creator created everything, that means he's the point, right? When you think of an iPhone, you're like, ooh, that's a cool iPhone, but you always immediately think of Apple, right? So when we see creation, when we see a tree, we see the epic ocean, or we go to the redwoods, or we go to Yosemite, we should see this creation and we should immediately go, wow, God created that. God reveals himself through his creation, which is our second fill-in. God reveals himself in Genesis through creation. Again, that God is the creator, so that means everything he created is under his control. And what's epic to understand is that we see God's character through his creation. We see it as he creates things. We're going to talk about that next week of how he creates things and exactly what he does specifically. But we see God's characters through his creation. For example, we see, like, if you like go into the wilderness, if you like go into like the redwoods or Yosemite or like Yellowstone or like any like national park, or if you just like walking around Rocky Peak campus, it's gorgeous. What's epic about this is that we see God's design for certain things, and we see that God's character is beautiful. It's precise. Like every single detail is perfect. God creates things perfectly. It's detailed, it's vast, it's epic. So God shows more of himself in Genesis, as we'll see starting again next week as we continue it. We see himself through his creation, which leads into our third fill-in. The third thing I want you to remember is that God is above the chaos. Is that what we've seen in this time is that what we saw in verse 2 of Genesis is that everything was chaotic. It was a wasteland. There was nothing that was good about it. It was chaotic. Humans couldn't live there, but yet God was above it all. His presence was above it. Is that God is above the chaos. And I don't know where you're at. Maybe you're going through something right now where life is awful. Life is terrible. Maybe something happened recently and you just don't even know where God is, why God is doing that, what is going on. But what you can be certain is that God is in it. God's above it sovereignly, kind of what we talked about earlier. He's ruling over it. God is above the chaos. So those are our 3 points. And now here's what all of this means for us, is that we understand these 3 points of what this passage is talking about, is that God is the point of the Bible, that Genesis helps us understand that God is showing himself to us, that he is a creator and that he's above the chaos. And then this is what it means for us, and I'll talk about it, is that we live, this is your last fill-in, we live under God's authority. We live under God's authority. Is that since God created everything, that must then mean that we must live under God's creation, under his authority. right? Like, for example, if you were to get like, as an example, if you were to get like an iPhone, right? And the iPhone breaks or something, you need a new battery, the screen cracks or whatever. Who are you going to take it to? You're probably going to take it back to the Apple store, right? And they're going to charge you a buttload of money, but that doesn't matter. But you're probably going to take it back to the people that designed it, that created it, because they know how to fix it. They know its original design. And in the same way, we can go to God to help us understand who God's called us to be, why he created us, how he created us, and we can go to him asking questions, being brutally honest, because he's the one that created it. And we live under his authority. And since he's the creator, God also defines everything. He defines everything that we come in contact with. For example, he defines our identity. God says who you are. Other people can't define who you are. God says who you are. He also defines our way of living. He calls us to live a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way. God calls us to do that. And lastly, he also defines our future, is that God understands and knows what's going to happen to you before you do. God is the one that created that, so he knows it. And oftentimes we don't know how to do something because honestly, we're not always good at deciding what is good. As an example, is that all of us were babies at once, right? Raise your hand. Wow, okay. All of you are like, no. But all of us were babies at once, right? And all of us, especially when we're babies, and even right now in middle school, but all of us were fully reliant on our parents, right? All of us were fully reliant on our parents, grandparents, whoever it is that you grew up with. All of us were fully reliant on them, and we were, so to speak, under their authority because we didn't know how else to live, right? Our parents know what food we should eat. Our parents know what clothes we should wear. And what's even more incredible is that even when we were babies, we didn't have to worry about getting food. We don't even have to worry about getting clothes because our parents take care of us even when we don't realize it. And in the same way, God takes care of us even when we don't realize it. That he is calling us to something epic and something great. And oftentimes we don't even know what that is. And yet God is there. He's above it all. And what's crazy, it's not like we were like a newborn, right? When you're a baby. And could you imagine if your parents did this? Like you were born and then your parents looked at you and you were like, figure it out. Good luck, right? No, our parents knew what is best for us and they have called us and care for us. And in the same way, God's authority is very similar, is that God knows what's best for us. And since that's true, then we have an absolute truth of knowing that his blessing, we can be blessed by God, and it's a blessing to be under his authority because he knows what's best for us. And it's a beautiful design. Like every single thing God's created is good and perfect. And we'll talk about that more next week as we continue in Genesis chapter 1. But if you want like a quick action step as the band comes up, if you guys want just a quick way of like, man, how can I kind of live out living under God's authority, living under how God has called me to live, how can I do that this week? And here's an easy way. It's not in your note sheet, but if you want to write this down or remember it, I want to encourage you, just go through Genesis, maybe just for the month of January, and just start reading it. You don't even have to actually read it. You can just listen to it. But read through Genesis and see how God has designed you and what he's called you to. In a very similar way is that Genesis was written to all the people of Israel because it was showing them who this God is that freed them and how all these people had a part to play in his design and his epic plan. But another way also is that I want to encourage you, talk to your life group leader or even talk to your parents of like, how can I kind of live under this authority of God, that God is the creator of everything? And we believe that because the Bible tells us that. But how can we best live under his authority? I would encourage you, grab your life group leader, grab one of your parents and just ask, man, like, how can I live under this authority? All right. So as we go into this last song, we're going to go into this song called So Will I. And this song is talking about how God created everything And all of creation is, so to speak, worshiping God. And in the same way, we should also worship him as well. It says in the song, like, kind of like, wherever the wind goes, wherever the tide goes, so to speak, we also want to go that way. Wherever God calls us, we want to be going there as well. So I'm going to invite you guys to stand on up. Go ahead and stand on up. And as we go into this last song, I want to encourage you in a couple ways as we head into it. Is maybe worship is just not your thing. You're like, man, I just don't like it. It's just weird. I don't have a great voice or whatever. I'm worried about people judging how I sound, whatever it is. I'm going to encourage you, if you're one of those people out there, just maybe close your eyes. And if that's too much, then just read the words on the screen and kind of just picture what these words are describing. All right. So as we go into this last song, and then after that song, then we're going to see what kind of Brinley created, kind of what she was picturing. I'm really excited about that. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll go into this last song. Jesus, thank you so much that you have created everything, that you've called us to something epic and to something beautiful because you've designed it that way, and that you are the only creator and the only one that can create. And man, you do such a beautiful job. So would we understand more how to live under your leadership, under your authority, and then understand more of how you called us to that. So we love you, we thank you, and it's in your name, amen.